My daughter's youth pastor offered her special mentoring, and I discovered what that really meant. I was folding laundry in the living room when my 16-year-old daughter Iris came home from youth group looking happier than I'd seen her in months. She practically floated through the door with this glow about her that immediately caught my attention. When I asked about her evening, she mentioned that Pastor Dominic had offered her a special mentoring opportunity for students showing spiritual leadership potential. My first reaction was pride because Iris had been struggling with confidence after a difficult breakup, and any positive attention seemed beneficial at the time. Pastor Dominic explained it would involve weekly one-on-one sessions to develop her testimony and prepare her for a youth ministry leadership role. Over the next few weeks, Iris attended these mentoring sessions faithfully, always coming home energized and talking about spiritual growth concepts I didn't quite understand. She'd mentioned things like discovering her true calling and learning to surrender completely to guidance from spiritual authority. The language felt slightly off to me, more intense than typical youth group discussions, but I attributed it to my own lack of recent church involvement. Pastor Dominic had actually been helpful during our divorce 3 years ago, offering family counseling sessions that Iris found comforting. He was in his early 30s, charismatic and well-liked by both the youth and their parents. One evening about a month into the mentoring, I noticed Iris had started dressing differently for these Wednesday sessions. Instead of her usual jeans and oversized hoodies, she was wearing dresses and putting on makeup, which seemed unusual for a church meeting. When I commented on it, she got defensive and said Pastor Dominic had explained that presenting yourself well was part of respecting the sacred space of spiritual mentorship. She also mentioned he'd asked her not to discuss the specific content of their sessions with others, including me, because the mentoring involved personal spiritual matters that required confidentiality to be effective. This bothered me more directly because I'd always maintained open communication with Iris about everything. The following week, I decided to pick Iris up early from her session, arriving at the church annex around 8:30 p.m. instead of the usual 9 p.m. end time. The annex building was oddly dark, except for a single light in what I knew was Pastor Dominic's office on the second floor. I texted Iris that I was waiting in the parking lot, expecting her to come down within a few minutes. Instead, she didn't respond for nearly 20 minutes, and when she finally emerged from the building, her hair was disheveled and she looked flustered. In the car, I noticed she was wearing a silver bracelet I'd never seen before, delicate with a small cross charm. When I asked about it, she said Pastor Dominic had given it to all his mentoring students as a symbol of their commitment to the program. The next morning, I called my friend Vanessa, whose daughter had been active in the youth group until recently. I casually asked if her daughter had ever participated in Pastor Dominic's special mentoring program. There was a pause on the line before Vanessa said they'd declined because the time commitment seemed excessive. She mentioned hearing from another parent that the mentoring program was relatively new, started just 6 months ago, and that only girls had been selected for it so far. This detail sent alarm bells ringing in my head because Iris had presented it as a gender-neutral leadership development program. Vanessa also mentioned that Pastor Dominic's wife had recently moved back to her parents' home in another state with their 2 young children. I'd driven to Iris's apartment that same day and let myself in with the spare key. Every surface held framed photos of what appeared to be mentoring sessions, but something felt wrong about the body language. I found a stack of handwritten notes in her bedroom, messages that seemed far too personal for a pastoral relationship. The language was carefully constructed to sound spiritual, while clearly establishing inappropriate emotional intimacy. When Iris came home from work that evening, I tried to talk to her gently about what I'd found, but she became immediately defensive, almost aggressive in a way that was completely unlike her usual temperament. I made the decision to attend the Wednesday evening service that week, positioning myself where I could observe Pastor Dominic's interactions with the youth group. What I saw made my stomach turn. He was warm and engaging with all the students, but there was a noticeable difference in how he interacted with certain girls, including Iris. He touched their shoulders, leaned in close when speaking to them, and maintained eye contact that lasted just a bit too long. After the service, I watched him pull Iris aside, speaking quietly while his hand rested on her lower back in a gesture that read as far too familiar. I left the church that night but didn't go home. Instead, I parked down the street with a clear view of the annex building entrance and waited. At exactly 7 p.m., I saw Pastor Dominic arrive and unlock the annex. At 7:15 p.m., Iris arrived. For the next hour, I sat in my car wrestling with what to do. At 8:30 p.m., I decided to enter the building. The main door was unlocked, and I climbed the stairs quietly, hearing voices from Pastor Dominic's office. The door was closed but not fully latched, leaving a narrow gap. I positioned myself where I could hear without being seen. What I heard in those next few minutes changed everything. The rest of the story is linked below or on my channel.